So during the pandemic, being in college seems like it would be a very different experience than it was pre-pandemic, but you first have to get there. So let's talk a little bit about how 2020, how the pandemic has affected the process of applying to college. And joining us to break it all down is the president and CEO of the Common Application and expert on education, Jenny Ricard. Welcome to the Damage Report.
Thanks so much, John. Glad to be here.
We're glad to have you here. So if you're a prospective college student out there and you're getting involved in this application process, what has 2020 done to that? How are things different?
Wow. Well, John, what it has done it's disrupted the process from a variety of perspectives. First of all, one of the standards that students have been involved with over the years is standardized testing. And standardized testing in terms of the ability for the testing agencies to be able to administer the exams has been disrupted by the COVID-19, which then makes it more challenging for colleges and universities to get the names of students that they might recruit in that process. It has also led to more institutions deciding to remove standardized tests from their criteria, given the fact that so many students won't be able to have access to that, which is then creating, I think, some confusion and speculation on the part of students about, well, maybe I'll have a better chance of getting into a school if I don't have tests or if they're not looking at tests anymore. So the traditional criteria that students have been able to assess whether they may or may not get into a college is changing for them as well, because they're not going to have that same test score that's in the mix.
Yeah, very reasonable. What I'm wondering is, do we have evidence yet where we can say definitively how the disruption itself, the prospect that you might not be able to actually go physically to college, that might influence people's applications? Do we have any idea yet of how much all of this together might be affecting not just like how many schools each student applies to, but whether they apply at all? Is this affecting the overall, like the number of people transitioning from high school to college this year?
Yeah, well, I'm worried in terms of this application season. We already know that there are declines in enrollments for this particular year in terms of students who got admitted last year who may not have enrolled this year or decided to delay their enrollment. But in the application process so far this year, our early numbers at Common App are showing change and a decline for students. As of now, we have probably about a 5% decline in applicants as of right now, which is significant because typically we added 40 new colleges to our membership this year. We have over 900 colleges and universities who are members of the Common App, and so to have a 4% decline when you've added is significant. And this is also the time of year when we typically have more applications, a higher increase, because it's the beginning of the school year and there are early deadlines starting October 15th and then November 1st that tend to draw a lot of applicants. Yeah. So to see that is showing to us that there are changes. We also have seen some declines in first generation college students and fee waiver eligible students. So that we're looking out for that.
Yeah, I'm glad that you mentioned that about the fee waiver students, because I remember back a billion years ago when I was applying to colleges how expensive the process was, and we not only have the pandemic, we have tens of millions of people losing their jobs, and it's a significant expense. I know that there has been some education aid that was provided, 6 months ago when the government last did something about the pandemic. Was there any money that was provided to ease the cost of going through this process? Was that a part of it?
That's a great question, and it would have been up to the individual colleges and universities to decide where they wanted to allocate that funding. But I do know, and I've seen just over the past couple of days, a number of schools deciding to waive their application fees this year. We don't have the data yet at Common App of our 900 members, but I do know that about half of our members already do not charge an application fee, and so the other half do. And to use the Common App, since we're a nonprofit membership organization, it's free for a student to use the Common App. It's the individual schools that charge application fees. So I don't know if there was funding, there was not funding directly to that, but it's up to the institutions to make that decision.
Okay, that's a very important distinction to make. Now I know that there was a change made to the Common App this year. Could you walk us through that?
Yeah, definitely. At this moment of reckoning about race and equity in education, we are taking it very seriously what our role might be as part of the system in terms of putting up barriers for students in terms of access. And so we've been looking at our questions on the application to make sure that we're not doing that. And if we are doing that, what changes can we make? And when you look at school discipline disproportionately impacts low income and students of color, particularly Black students. Black and Latinx students Black students are in K-12 are 4 times more likely to be disciplined than a white student. And that inequity can persist when you go into the college application process and there's a question about it. I think about the student who thinks the odds are already stacked against them, thinking that here's yet another thing, and they get to that question and they give up. Because school discipline has been shown when students are suspended, they're less likely to graduate from high school, less likely to go to college, and more likely to enter the criminal justice system. So when we did a review of external and internal data, we found, what I just said about the disproportionate impact on Black students, but also the fact that Black and Latinx students, for the same disciplinary issue, are more likely to be removed from school than a white student. And our own data showed that students who answered the school discipline question were less likely to complete or submit their application.
Oh, wow.
And that the students who answered yes to that question, again, were disproportionately Black and Latinx. So from our vantage point, removing that question from the common portion of the application is a step towards chipping away some of these this evidence of sort of systemic barriers that we have erected in the process. So we're looking forward to hopefully our members can still ask it on their own applications, but we're doing everything we can to educate them about this disproportionate impact on students of color and particularly Black students.
That seems to make all the sense in the world. Seems like common sense. And so in America, my spider sense goes off. What has the reaction been like since that change was announced?
Yeah, we just announced it, and the schools have been receptive. I've not actually gotten any pushback from institutions. We do have education sessions that we're providing, and our goal again is to have fewer schools choose to ask it on their supplemental portion of the common application. I can tell you that last year was the first year that after which we had removed the criminal history question from the application. It used to be again a common question, but we removed it, and half of our members decided to ask it. So that means half of them chose not to. And so that's what we're really looking forward to, is having more of our members choose not to ask the student discipline question because of the impact that it has on a student even thinking, about going to college. And we just can't have that, particularly today.
I agree. Any other significant changes being discussed going forward? This pandemic might continue for some time. What else is on the docket?
Yeah, we've got a number of things. In terms of changes to the application, on the list are citizenship as it relates to immigration and undocumented students, and how we might be asking that question in a way that could be having a chilling effect on undocumented students, and what can we do there? Religion is one of the questions, military discharge, family background, and then also gender identity and expression are some of the questions there. Also with the pandemic, we added a question this year for students who may have been impacted by the pandemic in terms of not having Wi-Fi to take classes, or not having a quiet space in their home, or needing to actually take care of siblings rather than being able to focus on their classwork. Wanting to be able to give students a place on the application where they could share that information without them having to use their essays or other aspects of the application to do so. We also had an initiative that I'm really excited about in terms of what it has done and what the potential is. In April, when we realized that students who'd already been admitted to college were going to be dealing with financial aid questions and not necessarily knowing what decision they should make, whether the college they're going to is going to be able to admit them or continue to give them financial aid. We partnered with a chatbot platform, AdmitHub, as well as College Advising Corps, and we identified nearly 200,000 students who are first generation, low income, or underrepresented, or likely to not have school counseling resources, to connect them to this chatbot that could answer basic questions. But then if they had another question, connect them to someone at College Advising Corps, a real live person, to be able to give them more personalized advice. And what we found, and because it's still going on, is we had a 60% engagement rate with that chatbot. And you think about that, it's typically about 15% when an individual college is reaching out to a student. And so the fact that we had a 60% engagement rate really spoke to us about the idea of sort of a neutral party providing guidance that is tailored to the student and making it very accessible to them, right there in text messaging, can really make a difference. So we're excited about being able to have interventions like that, given the reach that we have, because over 1 million students apply to Common App every year using that platform, and a third of them are first generation college students.
Wow. These all seem like very reasonable changes, especially considering some of the massive challenges that we discussed earlier. So thank you for looking into this and helping to make it as easy as possible during the most difficult year for college applications, probably on record. Jenny Ricard, ever, exactly. President and CEO of the Common Application, Jenny Ricard, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much, John.
Check out the Damage Report podcast each day, wherever you get your podcasts, whether Pocket Casts or Stitcher or iTunes. You can join me as I give you the news and stories you want, with a range of co-hosts and interview guests jumping in on the fun each day. Again, that's the Damage Report, wherever you get your podcasts. And if you get them at iTunes, don't forget to rate and review. Sometimes I'll read them live on the show.